You have probably seen him before. He's the biggest minion that you can summon outside of the Ancient One, and that is Highkeeper Ra. As big as the Darkness, but way harder to summon in all 10 different classes, which is what we are going to do today. In order to get this card, you need to play 7 Mogul Cultists, which seems kinda hard considering that you can only put in 2 of these in any deck. That means we have to figure out ways to summon multiple copies of this, or gaining multiple copies to our hand or deck, in order to play all 7 and then summon Highkeeper Ra. 10 decks, 10 classes, and 10 giant light gods that shoot sun rays and do like and other cool sound effects. Before we start though, don't forget, if you like this style of video, maybe consider subscribing. Only a small portion of you guys are subbed, and it helps out the channel a lot. But now let's get into the general idea on how you would summon him. There are 3 different ways on how you can summon Highkeeper Ra. The first one would be, you play a Mogul Cultist on your board, and then play double Augmented Alec as well as double Baleful Banker to shuffle not just 3 but 6 copies in total of Mogul Cultist into your deck. Within the next couple turns you need to draw all 6, but if you do that, you do have 7 in hand. We have to fall back on this one once or twice, because a couple classes in this game don't have a great way of getting copies of a card to your hand or summoning multiple copies of a minion on the field. The next thing you can do to multiply your Mogul Cultist is using a Carnivorous Cube. If you destroy Mogul Cultist with your cube, and then destroy the cube after, you pretty much double the amount of Cultists you have. And if you use a card like Face's Manipulator, you can get 4 or even 6 of them on the field. The problem is though, you still have to destroy the cube somehow, or at least trigger its death battle, which is harder than expected. But we will still find a couple ways on making that happen. The last thing we need to consider is that we always need at least 1 Emperor tick, meaning we need to play Emperor Tauristan a turn before we can pull off our combo. In addition to that, for 2 classes we also need to play Drakari Enchanter for Emperor himself, so we not just reduce the cards in our hand by 1 but 2 mana instead. You can also play a card like Licensed Adventurer and a quest to get some coins, or maybe even Lightning Bloom to get extra mana, but Emperor Tauristan is usually what you do. Lastly, in order to actually have an OTK using Highkeeper Ra, we do need to play Drakari Enchanter next to Highkeeper Ra, which makes it so that the end of turn effect, which deals 20 damage to all enemies, doesn't just trigger once, but twice. That is all we needed to know to get into the video, and let's start with Demon Hunter. Considering that Demon Hunter was released about 7 months ago, we don't really have many cards that we can choose from. The strong part about this deck or this class is we can draw a ton of cards, so basically 3. So we have to fall back to playing Augmented Alec twice as well as Baleful Banker twice. With 1 remaining in our hand and 6 in our deck, we just have to draw all 6 copies that we just shuffled, and then we can play them, use Drakari Enchanter, and then eventually deal 40 damage and win. If you were to play this in a ranked match, you will very likely die before, as this one is fairly hard to set up and you're unprotected the entire time. The other really important thing for this is, your board has to be empty. You do have to summon 7 Mogul Cultists, and if there's even a single minion on your board and you can only summon 6 Cultists, nothing happens. And that is how you summon the giant light god in Demon Hunter. A more interesting and viable variation is on Druid. There are 2 cards in Druid that are the essence of most combos that you can do with a class like that in Wild. And those cards are Aviana and Kun. When you play Aviana, all your minions cost 1 mana, meaning if you play Kun afterwards and you get 10 mana crystals back, you now have 10 mana to use to make this combo happen. And here we're going to play Aviana to Kun, then play Cultist, cube that Cultist, summon 2 copies of that cube using Face's Manipulator, then using Poisoned Seeds, and then realizing that there is no space on the board. So we do it again. This time we summon double Mogul Cultist, use double cube, and then we realize, the Mogul Cultist part is a battle cry, not just a effect the card has. So in other words, we just summoned 7 1/1s. So I changed the deck a little, we use Poisoned Seeds, we have a 2/2 remaining, and now just imagine we would have a card like Living Roots in our hand to deal 2 damage to that treant, so we can use the last Mogul Cultist. Then summon Highkeeper Ra and then do like Light Rays and pew pew pew, and then win. Just imagine you would have just seen that. I'm also just the guy, and yeah, I messed it up multiple times. But I would never mess it up in Hunter. Hunter makes the combo we just played a little bit easier, considering that we have access to 2 specific cards. We have Play Dead and Feign Death. Cards that are pretty much like Spirit Singer Umbra. They trigger the death battle of a minion. So all we have to do is play a Mogul Cultist, use Carnivorous Cube, and then trigger the death battle 3 times. After that, we have to destroy the cube, and then I realized that I have no way to destroy the last Mogul Cultist, and yeah. So I did it again, and if you then at the very end also destroy one of the Mogul Cultists to play the other one you still have in your hand, you do summon Highkeeper Ra, you can play Drakari Enchanter, look at your Light Rays, and win a game. Just don't forget, you need to make space on the board. Which would also mean you could just save 1 Play Dead or 1 Feign Death, and then you just need 1 cube, 2 Mogul Cultists, 1 being in your hand, double Quick Shot, and double Play Dead. So only 7 cards. Oh, and Drakari Enchanter, so make it 8. See, the combo's getting easier and easier. Mage is making it so easy to summon this. I mean, it's almost competitively viable if you're playing Bronx 10. We have access to a card called Simulacrum. which copies the lowest cost minion in your hand, meaning that you can start your turn or your combo where you have 4 copies of Mogul Cultist in your hand already. After that, you just have to play all 4 copies and then use a card like Echo of Medivh or Potion of Illusion to add 4 more copies to your hand, summon 3 of those, look at the animation, and then use Drakari Enchanter. This is not even that hard to pull off. You just have to keep in mind that your hand needs to be quite empty. You need like 1 Emperor Taurus intake on like 1 or 2 cards. And starting off the combo by summoning 4 Mogul Cultists immediately makes it so that we can play our combo cards over the game. And then there's Paladin. While Paladin might have a bunch of strong Libram cards and other stuff and it heals and I don't know what it really does, it's like in a class identity crisis at the moment. But there's no real way of getting additional copies or summon multiple Mogul Cultists, so we could either use Carnivorous Cube and Faceless again, and then use like Pyromancer into Equality, but this costs like 28 mana, so we do it differently. We again just summon double Alec, double Baleful Banker, and shuffle multiple copies of Mogul Cultist into our deck, but then eventually draw them, summon them all, but instead of using Drakari Enchanter, we can use Gift of Luminance, which is pretty much the exact same thing, also costs 3 mana, but this time it's a spell, not a minion. Yep, big difference. Based on Gift of Luminance being a dual class card, Priest is next. And in Priest the combo is actually somewhat viable. At least when I played that, which you can check out on the daily channel, where we upload daily gameplay, really epic. What you do in here is make use of multiple cards that we have not used before. When you summon a single Mogul Cultist, and you use the spell Grave Rune on it, it makes it so that when this minion dies, you summon 2 copies of this. It's pretty much the Death Rattle effect of Carnivorous Cube, but as a 4-mana spell. Now, because we can choose the minion we give this effect to, we can also choose that we copy this minion, but instead of using Faceless Manipulator, we use another card called Shadowy Figure. This card is terrible and never saw play, has a pretty nice artwork, but is really important for this combo. For just 2 mana or 1 after an Emperor tick, you can summon not just 1 but 2 copies of the Mogul Cultist that already has Grave Rune as an effect on it, meaning that if all 3 minions die, you summon 6 Mogul Cultists. And in this case, we only have to play Blood Mage Thanos into Spirit Lash to deal 2 damage AoE and destroy all the minions on our side of the field, use the last Mogul Cultist from our hand to summon Highkeeper Ra, and then use either Gift of Luminance or Drakari Enchanter to again deal 40 damage face. When you play this deck, you also play Awaken the Makers and Amara, so you actually don't die while setting up this combo. For Rogue, you have a bunch of different ways on how you can summon Highkeeper Ra. First, I thought, if we already used Carnivorous Cube, we could also use Anchor the Buried, make the cube cost 1 mana, and then summon like a couple copies of them, maybe destroy them using an AoE effect. But there's a method that is a lot easier. When your deck is empty, this is the easy step. When your deck is completely empty, summon a single Mogul Cultist, and then use double Shadow of Death on it. This means that you're going to shuffle 6 copies of Mogul Cultist into your deck. The difference to the Alec and Baleful Banker play is that instead of shuffling the original minion that you then have to draw and play and spend mana on, you summon a Shadow which is going to summon the minion. So if you then use Shift on the original minion, you're going to draw 6 Mogul Cultists, so you can then play the 7th one from your hand. If you do have preparation, you don't even need to use Emperor Taurus. Rogue does not have a card like Gift of Luminance to summon a copy of Highkeeper Ra, meaning we again use Drakari Enchanter and deal some damage face. I would almost say that if you try this in a ranked match, this might actually work. Just make sure to include something like Reno because your deck has to be empty anyways, so if you play Reno, the effect is going to be active eventually. Now to the second hardest class, which is Shaman. Shaman has this very fun spellstone called Sapphire Spellstone. It has the effect of summoning copies of a minion for the cheap cost of 7 mana. And to upgrade that spellstone, you need to overload for 3. Twice. Meaning, in other words, you have to use double Rain of Toads, so spend 12 mana initially to upgrade your spellstone twice, and then also get 2 Emperor ticks, or have like 1 or 2 Lightning Blooms in your hand. Then you gotta play Mogul Cultist, use double Spellstone, destroy one of those Cultists, just imagine I would have done that here, and then play the other copy from your hand, and then play Drakari, and then deal 40 damage. So if one of the 2 cards in my hand would have been something like Lightning Bolt, or anything else that deals 1 damage, this could have worked, but you get how it works. So for Shaman, this was really complicated, but it gets more complicated in Warrior. But next is Warlock. Fun fact at this point, Highkeeper Ra in Warlock used to be my favorite deck of all time. I played this pretty much daily on my Twitch.tv stream. But then, because of this very fun card named Snip Snap, they had to nerf the Echo mechanic. When the Echo mechanic got nerfed, it made it so that cards with the Echo keyword cannot cost less than 1 mana. So every single time you get an Echo minion, it is going to cost 1 mana. You used to play this combo by using Treachery on a Generous Mummy, which made it so that all your minions cost -1. And 1 - 1 is 0, meaning that all your Echo minions cost 0 mana. Because Echo is nerfed now, you do have to spend a mana over and over. So to set this up, it's a little bit more complicated. First of all, you have to play Supreme Archaeology as a quest, as we do need the hero power that draws a card which makes it cost 0 mana. Next, you have to get 2 Emperor ticks, so you play Emperor and Drakari Enchanter immediately. On top of that, you also need to get at least 1 coin. Either you start with 1 or you play Licensed Adventurer and add a coin to your hand. And then you do the following thing. You play Glinda Crowskin for 4 mana, and play a total of 6 Mogul Cultists, which cost 5 mana in total. So far we had 9 mana. You use a card like Dark Pact to destroy a Glinda Crowskin, then play another Mogul Cultist to summon Highkeeper Ra, then you play Baleful Banker, for which you would either need the coin or the second Emperor tick. While your deck is empty, that is the important part, to shuffle that into your deck, to then play Tour Guide to use your hero power for free, to then tap into Highkeeper Ra, which makes him cost 0 mana, to then summon him for free, so you have 2 copies. Even though it's quite complicated and is a long setup, this deck is so fun to play, if you don't face Aggro Druid, which... Sorry that I made a video on that and promoted that a lot. But yeah, if you face somebody who plays like, I don't know, Jade Druid and has no armor, this works. And lastly, there's Warrior. I wanted to use cards that copy Mogul Cultist, that is class specific, and in this case we only have 1 card for that, and that is Blood Warriors. This card was once revealed by Life Coach back in like 2016 or so, and this card was so bad. This only ever saw play with Arcane Giant, which is not a good card in Warrior. But let me explain how this combo works, at least in my head. After 2 Emperor ticks, you can do the following thing. You summon both Mogul Cultists, then you play Boisterous Bard. It is going to buff your Mogul Cultist by +1 health. Then you use Whirlwind to damage both Mogul Cultists, and use stuff like Sword and Board to destroy your Boisterous Bard. You then use double Blood Warriors to add a total of 4 Mogul Cultists to your hand, which you then summon, but realize that you have to keep 1, play Prince Tal'Darim first because your deck is empty, then summon the 7th one to actually summon Highkeeper Ra and not mess up the order. Then you also need to somehow have a coin in your hand, which is so unlikely because you need like 9 different cards before you even play Emperor and Drakari in the first place, and then you play the other Drakari, and then you have Highkeeper Ra. We just imagine this would have happened, I would have just seen that, but yeah, that is incredibly complicated. In other words, just play the whole Alec and Baleful Banker stuff in Warrior. And that would be it. This is how you would summon Highkeeper Ra in all 10 classes. Or in other words, you can play like the Rogue deck, the Priest deck probably, and the Warlock deck most likely on ladder, the other 7 probably not. This would be an updated version since the card got released last year. Now maybe in the next couple of weeks when we see more and more cards for Darkmoon Faire, that's the name, maybe there's an even better version for each class. But until then, I kinda gotta fill the time. And I made the thumbnail for this video like 2 weeks ago and they didn't start it yet, so now it's finished. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, consider subscribing, leaving a like, whatever. It's free, helps out a lot. My name is Solem, and take care.